Welcome to Code.org Interactive Animation and Games Lesson 17. Let's take a quick look. We have a bunch of new codes. I'm not going to go over each of these. I'm going to let you just take a look at them and think about what do you think they do. We are going to get right into it. Lesson 17, bubble number 1. What do you predict? If-else predictions. What happens when you press the spacebar? What happens when you don't press the spacebar? So we have our balloon, we have our set animation, we have our scale, so it's going to start at a 0.6. So key down, space. That just means when you press the space bar, what is going to happen? If you press the space bar, else. So if you're not pressing the space bar, what's going to happen? So we have our balloon, and if we press the space bar, the scale gets bigger by just a little bit. And if we're not pressing the space bar, the balloon gets smaller. All right, bubble number 2. Let's go ahead and run the program. We got some gears here. Space. When we press space, they move. Now we need to create an else. Let's see. Make the gear spin in the opposite direction when the space bar is not being pressed. Click the arrow on the if statement to expand the if statement to an if-else statement. So down here, we are going to we added the else statement. Add code to the else statement section in the if-else statement block that uses the counter pattern to make each of the gears rotate the opposite direction. So we are going to need to add our variable. So I'm going to go ahead and add, since we're going to need one for each gear, I'm going to go ahead and add all 3. Okay. And then where the X currently is, we are going to put our rotation block. So go grab a rotation block and fill those in. Okay. Equals. Now we need to add our math block. Now, we want them to go the opposite direction. So anywhere you have a minus, we're going to add a plus block. And anywhere you have a plus, we're going to add a minus block. That way they go the opposite way. Now let's add, now let's add some more rotation blocks. And then let's fix all our names. So we have a blue gear, and we have a green gear. Make sure you look closely at those capitals and those lower cases. Okay, and we have, once again, our blue gear and our green gear and our red gear. Now, we want to go the opposite way, and I want you to make them the same speed. So that's -1, so instead of -1, we need +1. And instead of +1s, we're going to do -1s. All right, so let's run the program. Oh, I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? Oh, I hit an F instead of G. There we go. Now we can run the program, and when we hit the space bar, they start going the opposite direction. Once you've done that, hit finish and go ahead and go to bubble number 3. Read the program carefully, especially line 13, to figure out how to control the gears. Run the program and test whether you are correct. Make the gear spin the opposite way when there is no user input. Expand the if-else statement into Expand the if statement into an if-else statement. Add the code in the else statement. So currently, if we press the left mouse down button, so if we press the left mouse button, it turns. When we stop, it doesn't turn. So we want it to turn the opposite direction. So it's very similar to the last one you just did. So go ahead and pause it and try and do this one yourself. All right, let's go ahead and add all of our variable blocks in here. And then I'm going to add all my rotation blocks, at least the first three. Okay, and then I need to add my math blocks. And remember, I want to go the opposite way. So wherever they have a plus, I'm going to need a minus, and wherever they have a minus, I'm going to need a plus. And then let's add the rest of those rotation blocks. Once again, I'm just going to keep it at the same speed. All right, reset, run. Oh, once again, I made a mistake. I didn't change any of my names. So make sure you change your name. Green gear, spell them correctly, use the same capitalization and lower cases that they do. All right, I still have a thing here. Green, I missed my N. Oh, now it disappeared. Okay, now let's try it. We're gonna run it, and when we press the mouse, it goes backwards, and when we let go, it goes forwards. All right, once you're done with that, hit finish and go to bubble number 4. All right, bubble number 4. We are going to add an if-else statement. Right now, our balloon goes down. That is the only thing our balloon does. We want to make it so that when we click our mouse, the balloon will travel up the y-axis. So we're going to go ahead and add our if-else statement. Okay. So right here, this is what moves it down. So we want this to go under our else, okay, this line of code. You don't even have to redo it. You can just put it under your else. All right, if our mouse down, the left button, then what do we want it to do? Let's go grab our variable. All right, we want it to move along the y-axis. And since I am having so much trouble remembering to change the names, let's do it now. All right, we have a balloon. Then we need our math block. There's a plus button here. So remember, as we go down, our y increases. So we want a minus here. And then minus on the y-axis. So our balloon, and instead of going down, instead of increasing by 1, hence making the balloon go down, we want it to subtract 1, hence making it go up. So right now we got the balloon going down, and hold down that left mouse button and your balloon should go up. And then when you let go, it goes down. All right, and you are now controlling that balloon. Press finish and go to bubble number 5. Let's see, we got a blender here, and it is blending stuff. Let's take a look at our picture over here. We want it so that when the mouse hovers over it, it will make it look like it's moving. And when the mouse is not on it, it doesn't move. We're going to make this mixing bowl do the same thing. So it says run the program to see how it works. Add the conditional so that when the mouse is on the other side of the screen, the mixture shakes instead. So we're going to expand our if statement to make it an if-else statement. And we need to add some variables. So we're going to add I'm going to go ahead and add the both blocks that we need. Now it's moving, if we look at this blender and look at the code, it's moving both on the X and the Y. That's why we need two. It's not just moving up and down, it's not just moving side to side. So let's add our X and let's add our Y. And we're not talking about the blender, we are talking about the mixer. Okay, then we're going to add some random numbers in here. Hopefully you remember how to do the random numbers. Now, I'm not going to put 95 to 105. I want you to pause it and think about why. All right, once you figured it out, is if I put 95, 105 for X and 295 and 305 for Y, it's going to put this right on top of our blender. So what's important is how far these numbers are apart. There is a difference of 10. So right now our blender is about 286, 305. So let's do our X. Let's do 285 to 295. All right, so right now we need our Y. Let's take a look at our Y. It's about 300. So the Y is actually, we are on the same Y. So our Y can actually be the same. So now when our mouse hovers over it, or just even on that side, because we're just doing mouse is greater than 200. So if our mouse is greater than 200, this one shakes. If it's not, then this one shakes. All right, you're going to do the rest on your own. You got a lot of fun activities here. You're making things more interactive so that whoever is going to do these, they actually get to play with the stuff. So go ahead and finish 6, 7, and 8, and I will see you next lesson.